Hello, I'm going to be talking about these items you can see in front of me. They all have a link to the London Borough of Barnet with different parts of it. These are items that I have acquired, bought over recent years, mainly out of curiosity, but also really just because you think, oh, I think I should retrieve that before it ends up being damaged or whatever. As you can see, damage does happen. So I'm going to go through them one by one. I've done a video like this before, but it was actually, there was some other different items in there. It was more, the angle on that one was really talking about industry in northwest London. This is really more just, I'm just going to go over these because the reason why I'm going to do this video is because I am going to be passing these on to the London Borough of Barnet, to the Barnet Archives. And I'll explain why. It's basically because with these items, you get them and you think, oh, that's really fascinating. I must get that. It's a good price. And then you're left with them as to what to really do. You know, do you sort of hold on to them? What are you going to do with them? Once the initial fascination is gone, unless you've got a nice area where you can display those things, like a big display cabinet or, I don't know, a museum yourself, it just becomes a little bit of a problem. And the worry always for me is that things get damaged. I also think that some things should really be shared with people, and I do think that local authority archives, when they do exist, these are sort of things that should be in them, so that everybody can have a look at them, people can access them. And so what it is, I checked with Hugh Petrie, who is the Heritage Officer for Barnet, and he said, oh yes, we haven't got this and we haven't got this. He doesn't know about these two. These are going to be a surprise for him. We're actually going to take them along to the archive today. So I thought I'd just shoot this now, really, as a sort of goodbye to these items. But it's not really a goodbye. It's, you know, if I want to see these things again, of course, by appointment, I could ask to see them. I did, after all, donate them. So I'm going to go through each of these items again. Some of them, so you might have seen the video before. I'll try and do it in a slightly different way. So I'm just going to take a little moment to rearrange things. So let's look at the first item. And this is, as you can see, it says Schweppes, Hendon, 1895 to 1979. Last production, 23rd of March, 1979. Well, what this relates to is the closure of the Schweppes mineral water factory at West Hendon. Okay, Hendon, but it was West Hendon. And that sat on the A5 Edgware Road at West Hendon. The site of that is now Angel's Costume Hire. And the bit that backs onto the road is going to be, I think, redeveloped. It was a motor car showrooms. I think it was a Toyota Gemca or something like that, or Lexus even. And that's not far away from the big site that where the Sainsbury's is now, and the big sort of residential complex called Silkstream. And of course the Silkstream comes into it, used to pass by the Schweppes factory. So the Schweppes factory was built at Hendon in 1895, as you can see. And it employed lots and lots of local people over the years. It had a significant contribution to the area. And I'm sure that local people were very sad in some ways to see it go. Maybe not, I don't know. But as an employer of many years, I'm sure that the closure of that would have made a significant impact. It's also a loss to the area because, of course, it meant that, you know, no longer Schweppes was associated with Hendon. And it was a big site. If you want to read about Schweppes at Hendon, of course, just have a look on the internet. You can find some quite good sites. And at some point, I guess I really should do a little bit of a sort of article on my past rewind WordPress account. But, yeah, one day I'll do that when I find the time. So let's have a look inside this box. Gosh, we've already done 5 minutes. So this opens up. Rather smart thing, really. And you get to see the first thing you hit is a card that says Schweppes Hendon 1979 farewell dinner dance. And this was Saturday the 5th of May 1979 at 7 p.m. at the Wembley Conference Centre. The Wembley Conference Centre, if you're not familiar with that, that was demolished, probably in the early 2000s. And the site of it is now occupied by the London Designer Outlet. So without waffling on too much about the Wembley Conference Centre, it was opened, I think, in 1978 or thereabouts. For any nerds out there was at least one episode of The Professionals that was filmed at the Wembley Conference Centre and inside it. And I think it was called The Madness of Mickey something or other. And it starred the guy who played the baddie in Star Wars. Scott's actor. Anyway, I really should do my research. I should do a script, shouldn't I? But that's not how I do things. So that's that. Now, that relates, obviously. So this is quite possibly something that would have been sent out separately, and maybe it's the employer who worked for Schweppes at Hendon. They kept all this stuff and put it together, or it came together and perhaps, was something that was given to employees so that they could go along to this. Because as you can see, the 5th of May is a bit after that last production batch. Then we get to see the farewell dinner dance menu. Schweppes Hendon again, you see. Chilled melon, prawn cocktail, grilled entrecôte garni, button sprouts, parmentier potatoes, iced bomb with peach, and then coffee. That's not bad for 1979, is it? So that was there. Not quite sure why that's cut out, but I think it might be to do with that bottle. So let's have a look at this bottle. Now, the interesting thing is, this is almost certainly the bottle that was in the box. There is no reason to doubt that. Sadly, they didn't actually do a special label on the bottle, so there is no way of knowing for sure. I'm just going to pause to get this out. Hang on. Watch the bottle roll off and smash. No, don't tempt fate. Ingredients: sugar, carbon dioxide, fruit acid, flavourings, quinine, saccharin. Can you tell what's missing here? Well, apart from the fact that it doesn't say Hendon, but it does say Schweppes Limited, London. And then here again. But there's not a lot there, is there? There really isn't. There's nothing on there to say it's the last production batch. You wonder what it's like in there. Probably awful. And there is, look, you can see some brown deposit. I don't know what that is, but it's possibly the remnants of one of these things. Fruit acid, probably. Yes, there's not a lot to it. And that's it. I mean, so this is, proper. This is really, it might seem inconsequential to some people, but this is a proper bit of history to do with the local area at West Hendon and to do with the London Borough of Barnet. Schweppes was just one of a number of different manufacturing industries in the borough that was the former borough of Hendon and has gone. I wouldn't stop to reel them all off, but there were many, and pretty important ones too. So that's that. As you can see, it's fairly straightforward, does its job. It's looked after the bottle and its contents for what is now 46 years. It's nearly half a century old, that. And you can see there's a bit of damage on there. I don't think I was responsible for that. I picked this up in a shop in Uxbridge, well, it's Harefield actually, a couple of years ago. And it was because I was tipped off that it was there. Might have actually been my wife that had told me this, but anyway. Yeah, that's it, really. It was a question of like, oh, I better get up to Harefield and pick it up. And I didn't make a big fuss when I went there. I didn't ring them up in advance either. because I didn't want them to sort of hike the price up or, you know, make a big deal when I got to the shop. I was very much like oh, right, how much is this? I mean, I don't know whether they even had a price on it, but I paid the princely sum of £12 for that. Let's move on to the next thing. Now, this might look a bit odd, but it's basically nothing to do with batteries. It's a razor. So I'm just going to open this up for you now. All right, so that's opened up. Ever Ready razors. I believe it's an American company. Nothing to do with the battery company. As you can see, it says British made. Now, the link to the London Borough of Barnet, formerly, well, this particular area would have been Hendon, the Borough of Hendon, as indeed that was the Borough of Hendon, is that there was a factory at Colindale. It is now the site of a residential complex. It's sat on the corner of the Greenway and the A5 Edgware Road, and that's sort of opposite where Asda is now. And they set up there in 1934, 35, I think it was. And they were there, I would imagine, right through until probably the late 50s. Don't know what happened after that. And there is a history that precedes that, as these little packets of replacement blades will show. These were not bought with the razor. I bought the razor on its own in the box, and then I picked up these packets separately off eBay. So that's not the order I wanted to do it in. Here we'll see the address. Ever Ready Corner, the Hyde, London, Northwest 9. So they had decided to call that corner on the Greenway and the A5 Edgware Road as Ever Ready Corner. It was quite an interesting building in terms of it being a quite modern looking design for its time. And at some point I shall put up some pictures of that on my Northwest London Time Machine accounts. And that's on Instagram and on Blue Sky. Ever Ready Corux. Don't know what that means. Sounds like corrosion. Anyway, so that's that packet there that came from the factory at Colindale. But then preceding that, before they went to Colindale, they were at 110 Cricklewood Lane. And I would imagine that was probably from the 1920s through till the mid-30s when they moved to Colindale. 110 Cricklewood Lane has some significance, and I'm going to show you just now what that is. Cue, a very obvious sign of promoting my own book, but that's not really what it's about. I've talked about this before on my video channel. 110 Cricklewood Lane, associated with the aircraft manufacturer Handley Page Limited, 110 Cricklewood Lane. That is Frederick Handley Page in 1913 at Hendon Aerodrome. 110 Cricklewood Lane. So that is where Handley Page set up in 1912, having moved from Barking, and they were on that site until probably the end of the First World War. They had then had a factory built on Claremont Road, which also had an aerodrome attached to it, and so they didn't really need 110 Cricklewood Lane. And interestingly enough, before Handley Page actually took those buildings over, it was in fact a horse stables. So everything has a history, and sometimes you can go back and back and back. So yes, that's the razors, and it's a rather early form of plastic. It's almost like Bakelite, and it could very well be that. Made in England, see? Even though it's an American company, but you see, the reason why so many American companies set up in the period after the First World War was to avoid import duty, you see. So if you made stuff in America, brought it in, you'd have big tariffs again. How topical. So you just set up a factory in this country, and then you could say it was made in Britain. Right, so let's move on to the next thing. And it is a postcard. And as you can see, it says Queen's Road, Hendon. Now, if you know Queen's Road and Hendon, you'll know that eventually comes out at the where the underground station is, and the A40. which rushes past all the traffic rushing past there. Go back the other way down Queen's Road. It takes you over the railway bridge, past Hendon Park, and then on your way to Brent Street. So I'm not sure exactly where that picture is, but there is a clue on the back. This is an original bit of writing that says, site of Central Hendon Tube Station before 1923. Roadway was raised 14 feet. We've no idea who wrote that. I acquired this off eBay not that long ago, actually. And yeah, we're to assume that the underground station was about there. Now, there are some pictures of Queen's Road and the construction of the underground station on London Transport Museum's photo collection pages online, and they are fascinating pictures. But I'm not seeing one that looks like that. So part of the reason for taking this along to Barnet Archives, not only to see is, do they have this photograph, but also to check with Hugh as to what he thinks. It is a fascinating picture. It may not seem like it to the casual viewer, but it is interesting. These are quite newly planted trees as well. So they're obviously laying it out to make it look quite special. And this road that goes up in the distance, you can see it curve round to that big tree. I think that is in fact what is now the A40, the Watford Way that passes down in to where Hendon Central Station is. It's a real interesting one, really. It's almost worthy of Robert Elms's Notes and Queries, but I think we're going back too far. That's 102 years. Yeah. So that's that one. And then our last item is this rather little curious artefact. And it is from the T-Bone Restaurant. Bear with me. T-Bone Restaurant in Edgware. Now, I have actually put this online on an article I did about a film that was filmed in Edgware in 1973. And convenient enough, I've actually forgotten. Oh, it's called Assassin, or The Assassin. So if you look up on Past Rewind, do that as all one word, and Assassin and Edgware, you'll find that article and you'll see this on there, and I can give you more of the story. But this is now currently, I think, a Chinese restaurant. But it's not far from the church that you see when you come in, which is St Margaret's. You can see the address here, look. 7 to 13 Station Road, Edgware. And the best of European cuisine in one restaurant. So they were known for doing steaks in particular, which is why you get this T-Bone Restaurant thing. I think it had been called something prior to that. But just like now, places change their names from time to time. So this is, if you didn't realise already, it's in fact actually an old matchbook. So this would have folded over. There's your striking area, and the card matches would have been along here. You can see they've left the mark where they were. So you would take this from the restaurant. They'd give these away for free, because back in those days people smoked a lot and people were able to smoke in restaurants. And so this is a good way of being able to promote them. If people kept these, a good way of remembering, oh, there was that restaurant, oh, I've got the matchbook for it. So it was a good way of just keeping things with people as physical reminders of your business. There we go, see, we're open for lunch from noon till 3 p.m. Now there's a good reason why they would have shut at 3 p.m. That's because of licensing laws, which changed in the 80s. Last order's taken at 11:45 in the evening, blah, blah, blah. It's quite late, actually, for that time, I guess. And there's a telephone number, which may very well still correspond to that address. I don't know. So that's that. This is a real piece of ephemera, and it's sufficiently odd. And it's the sort of thing that I think should be in an archive, as should that, and possibly this, if they don't own it already. So that's it. I mean, that's the size of it. Oh, look, there's that book again. I'm not blatantly trying to promote my book. So these items will be going as I said, through to the archives at the Burrows, the Hendon Central Library, where the archives are. And so if you want to be seeing these in the future, that is where they are. But you'll have to make an appointment if you want to see them. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. And it's worth bearing in mind that if you have got old items and things like this, ephemera, and it does become a bit of a problem as to what to do with them, then do contact your local authority archive. They may very well be very interested to have these items, or at least take photographs of them for records.